what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today I am back with another video here. Another win for this team. It wasn't a pretty one. It was not a pretty win. A 5-3 win over the Arizona Coyotes to end the 3-game homestand. 4-game win streak coming out of the All-Star break. This was just another one of those gutsy wins from the Flyers. And now when you really look at this team, and I think as the games go on, the season continues, I have said this over and over and over again. I'm gonna keep saying it because it keeps happening. They have a response. They have a response for anything that comes their way. When some of these, and the reason I think I really beat the drum on that all the time is because I don't really think any of these Flyers teams in recent years really have. I think some teams definitely, had one, and some just, just really didn't. But I think this team is different in so many ways, and I think the biggest thing that I, again, continue to notice in just about every game is that nothing really, I don't think, phases this team, specifically, and obviously there's, specific players that kind of fit that as well. But it's something that I really look at, and I'm like, this team is really, they're bonded together. Clearly, they have a ton of guys that obviously are very, it's a very tight group. It's really, really good to see. So when you look at this and you kind of look at where this team is, and more of the standings, 54 games played. Third place, 29-19-6, with 64 points. Still third in the Metropolitan. They are 8 points ahead of the New Jersey Devils and the New York Islanders. They're 10 points ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Washington Capitals, and they're actually 11 points ahead of Pittsburgh. They're really starting to separate themselves, which is good, and that's why building these wins is good, because thankfully the Flyers had their really bad stretch at really at a good time. It was right before a break, and I've mentioned it before, all those other teams were losing. New Jersey, they were losing. The Islanders, they were losing. I believe Washington had lost a couple. I know Pittsburgh had only won maybe one in their last 4 or something along those lines off the top of my head. For those couple of teams, Devils are 4-5-1 in their last 10. Islanders are 3-5-2. Capitals are 3-5-2, and Pittsburgh is 3-4-3. So all those teams are kind of losing at the same time, and the Flyers right now coming out of the break, they're winning, and that's the biggest thing. So let's actually get into this game for this one. Lions, they go 11-7, no Delorier. So Zamula comes back in, and then no Ristolainen. So Tippett with Couturier and Konechny, not Zamula. Stahl, he comes back in. So it was Tippett with Couturier and Konechny, Farabee with Frost and Atkinson, Cates with Paling and Hathaway, and then Owe Lexell, he comes in, and Scott Lawton. To round out the forwards, and then the defense, York, Sanheim, Stahl with Drysdale, Sealer with Walker, and Zamula, like I mentioned, and then Sam Ersson was in net. Again, I the first period was kind of miserable, to be honest. I know I tweeted that, and I was more frustrated at the fact that it was 2 penalties that they took. Lixa with a hold and Hathaway with a trip. It was 2 really just kind of needless penalties. Like, it was just plays you didn't really have to make. It was 2, especially Lixell's hold. I don't really see him getting another game after tonight, if I'm being honest. I didn't think he had a good showing. I thought he had a good showing in those couple of games, especially that one game in Detroit. But I don't know. I don't really know where Lixell fits. Like, he shows some offensive skill, but he has offensive skill, but he doesn't really show it. And I don't really think he's put in a good situation to even really show it either, to be honest. Playing like 4th line and just kind of being sprinkled in every couple of minutes or so. Like, I don't really know if that helps. I think it's hard for me to say because, again, obviously they're going to have, different lines and all that stuff, but he only played 4 minutes and 36 seconds tonight. So I don't really see him, A, getting on their game, or B, really being engaged in anything else with the rebuild, because, like, I don't really know where they see him. mean, he's like the first call up basically from Lehigh. You still have Brink down there. You could call up to Amala. I don't really know what they're gonna do. I mean, obviously you got a couple more weeks here until the deadline, but it's interesting. I don't really know what happens there. First period was not good. So 2 penalties. Lixo with a hold. The Flyers killed that one off, and then Hathaway took a trip right after. I don't really, again, I thought it was 2 good kills there. Tippett had a chance off the draw. He draws a penalty. So 3 penalties in the first maybe not even 10 minutes of this game. Atkinson had a chance in tight. Atkinson wasn't even on the penalty kill tonight, which was interesting. I think obviously the coaching staff has kind of been up and down, I think, with Atkinson. And I think there's been times where they've tried to get something out of him. I don't know if that's another poke at him that's like, hey, kind of wake up a little bit. I don't know. I mean, it's something that I am fine with because, the penalty kill has been good. It's been, obviously one of the better things from the Flyers. I guess I should say more consistent things from the Flyers this year. But unfortunately, after that chance from Atkinson, it was 1-0 Arizona. Dumba would score. Flyers had a turnover. Erson couldn't even see it. It was a shot from the point from Dumba, and they lead 1-0 going into the period. Going into the second period. Sanheim would score. Really nice move in tight. Good setup. Good play from Paling, who's just had a ton of speed recently, which has been really, really useful in a lot of areas. Unfortunately, it doesn't count. It was offside. The puck just went offside. There was enough room there where you could definitely tell. Frost gets a penalty shot. Bam, 1-1. I love that move from Frost. I absolutely love that move from Frost. I think the biggest thing with Frost that I have noticed is he's not, and I think I notice it more because he's one of the guys that I like the most. But at the same time, you really do notice him in all the little, facets of the game, whether it's offense, defense. I think the one thing I really noticed the most that's been really good recently has been transitioning, moving the puck up the ice. He's had a ton of confidence doing that and being able to spring it, things like that. It was really, really good to see him score that, and obviously the Flyers needed it. I mean, they had a couple of chances. I didn't think they were gonna really, not be able to score a goal tonight, but I honestly thought this was a loss. Just with the way that the schedule was going, I'm like, all right, we've won 3 in a row. They're coming in off of 5, and it just looked like a trap game, if I'm being honest, in a way, because where the Flyers are in their own right in the standings. But I mean, had they held on, and they obviously came back in the third. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes, though. Flyers do get a power play, then Frost draws one. 4-on-4. There was a high stick, Dumba. I don't really know what the penalty was there. They called it a high stick. He didn't even really move. Then Michelli would score. Nothing Erson could do. It was a really bad bounce, and the Flyers were horrific on defense before that even set the whole play up to happen. As I believe it was Moser. He was wide open going down the left wing wall, and I'm like, what is going on here? So 2-1, they get one, and then there's a power play. I'm like, all right, no, it was unfortunate. It's like you get no goal, then you get a penalty shot and you score, then you give up one, and then you take a penalty. It's like, oh my god, like we just had the game tied. They don't kill that one off. 4-on-4. Their interference, it was maybe like right after so it ends up getting negated. Cooley loses his stick. Lawton and Konecny go down the ice, say thank you very much. This game is tied 2-2. Beautiful pass, beautiful shot. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got to say about that one. 3-2. Horrible defense. York gets caught, and no forward got back. I thought Tippett could have got back. I didn't really love the effort on that one, if I'm being honest. Not saying that I think Tippett is like a lazy guy. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying I think he could have got back there. And also a forward should have been back for York. And it was a total breakdown. Unfortunately, the Flyers had a ton of breakdowns going into this. And I think, the out of these 4 games, you have Seattle game, which I thought there was one of their most complete games since coming back. And then tonight. Tonight wasn't really like that. It was kind of more of like the Jets and Florida game where it was like, good for a period, not good for a period, whatever. This game was, I think the biggest thing that I liked that transitioned over was the third periods in these past 2 games. I thought the game against Seattle, they really took it to them. Obviously, they gave up the goal 30 seconds in. Then they get one a couple minutes later. Kraken only had 2 shots in the third period. Coyotes up until around the 5-minute mark had 2. And they ended it with 6. They had a couple of chances late. Obviously, I mean, they have a ton of skill from Keller, Michelli, Cooley, all those guys, right? But to only give a team 8 shots combined in the third period in your past 2 games, that's 8 shots against in 40 minutes of play. Again, in the third period, that's a really good, thing to do, and a really good, feature to your team is being able to really shut it down in the third. And that's something that the Flyers should be, kind of really hang their heads on a little bit, because they know that they can do that. And I think it's a really good thing too, because it's like, with a team like that has a ton of skill and can create something out of nothing, and really even Seattle in their own right can do that. They have some guys that I don't think they're as deep as some. I don't think either of these teams are as deep as, someone like Vegas or Dallas, obviously, right? Or even the Jets, who they just played, or even Florida, if you want to throw them in that category too. But it's definitely a good thing to have. And so it's 3-2 going into the third period. They get the power play that runs over. I mean, we'll talk about the power play. It's a little separate from this game. They get their 6th power play. It was a delay of game. Drysdale, gorgeous skating. Tippett had a shot. No one in front. Couple of looks. And then they get the tying goal. Drysdale. It looked like it was Tippett. Really good skating. Really good pass from TK. And Drysdale, he gets his second as a Flyer. 3-3. And then Scotty Lawton. I mean, it was just such a good shift. Hathaway had a really good game, and the shift kind of, not like kind of bumped that up a little bit, because I believe he got on the scoreboard, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check now as I look at that. He did not. That is my mistake. But yeah, no, I mean, it was still a really good shift, and it was a pass down low, Sanheim right over to Lawton, and he ends up getting high sticked on the play. Wraps it around. Beautiful goal. He's got 2 in 2 games. Lawton, he had blocked a shot earlier in the game. I'm like, great. Like, I'm hoping he's not hurt. He went right down the tunnel. So I'm like, great. Like, that's not good, obviously, with everything going on with the deadline and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, just a timely, big goal for the Flyers and for Lawton. I mean, with 2 in 2 games, and it's one of those ones. It's a character shift, I think, from those guys, and they needed that, and I think it was. Obviously, the Flyers needed the lead because they hadn't had it all game, and they, tied the game, twice, and then ended up losing it, and then obviously a third time, and then they finally got the lead, and that was enough. They got another one, another power play. It was a high stick. It was 2 minutes because of the goal off of the play that Lawton had scored on. It would have been a double minor because Lawton was bleeding at a pretty big cut, and they didn't really do anything with that either. But Tippett would get the empty netter to make it 5-3. A really, again, not a great win, but a good win and a gutsy win. It's one of those ones that's like, all right, like, again, they show that they can play through whatever. If it's adversity or, goals kind of not going their way, or, going 0 for, they said on TV it was 0 for 7. The NHL.com has it as 0 for 8. I don't know if that was because some of them had like maybe 30 seconds of the 4-on-4 that carried over, and then they ended up saying that the Flyers didn't score on that power play, so that added to it, and I'm sure the other ones probably did up until that point. So 0 for 7, 0 for 8, whatever the number is, it's still not a good number. And, look, I think it's really hard for me to tell with the power play, because I think the power play has some really good moments. But the one thing that does frustrate me with the power play is the fact that it changes constantly, and you can't do anything consistently if you're constantly changing something. And it doesn't matter if it's the quarterback, if it's the guy in the bumper, if it's whoever's on the right flank, left flank. I don't care what it is. It's not going to work if you keep changing it all the time. And for the Flyers, who have a team that really, outside of Travis Konechny, don't have a legit threat that you can really go to on a power play. I mean, well, I should say, I guess you could put Tippett in that category. I mean, you definitely can. He's a guy who can obviously be a threat on a power play. But outside of those two guys, I mean, yeah, they have some other, legit guy, but they don't have an Ovechkin or any, you know what I mean? I'm not saying they have to have that guy, but they don't have a legit, you can always go to that guy and expect a goal. You don't have that, right? So that's the frustrating part, is like it constantly changes all the time. And I think also more to the fact that, it's not that I think the one thing that I am frustrated with, I think more or so with the power play, is just the fact that it keeps. It's like they have moments like the Seattle game where they're able to whip it around and they can use the seam pass and they can use whoever is in the open ice, and they don't do it then the next game. Like, it doesn't translate into anything that can kind of build a little bit of momentum off of it. And it's changed all year. I mean, Lawton has been, bumped up to the first unit, down to the second unit, and now he's on the second unit now, which I think has been better than the first one in some ways. But I think Drysdale adds a different, effect to it. You saw it on the one where, he had some really good skating, exploded off the wall and created so much open ice. That's what a guy like Drysdale can do, is use the open ice. Flyers don't really do that well. So, I mean, I'd like them to use more of the open ice, use the seam if you can, be able to, stretch plays out and get some net from presence is one thing. I mean, there was a chance that Drysdale had where he shot it, and I think Tippett had one as well, and no one's in front. Like, I don't mind Farabee down low in front of the net if you can utilize him and, if you want to open up the bumper or create another seam pass to open up. But when you keep getting these guys like Tippett, like Drysdale, that can shoot, I mean, from, maybe 15, 20, maybe 25 feet out, they're not going to beat the goalie if they can see it like that, especially Vejmelka, who's got a good glove and all that too. So, I don't know. It's frustrating, I think, with some of the personnel changes and all that, and I know Frost on it. I like Frost in the left flank. He's been able to kind of create from there all season. So I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of my 2 cents on the power play there. But yeah, I mean, look, a win is a win. I mean, from where this team was going into the break to where they are now, and 4 games out, and again, like I said, 3rd in the division. A win on Thursday, that would be their 30th win of the season. So they got Toronto in Toronto, and then we go to MetLife, playing the Devils. That'll be a big game because obviously there's games in hand for New Jersey. And like I said, as of right now, they're 8 points back. So we shall see what happens for the Flyers going into it. Again, they only have the Flyers only have the game against the Leafs on Thursday, and then the Devils, they play the 13th. They play tomorrow in Nashville, and then they're home. It's kind of a weird schedule. So they're home tonight against Seattle. They go to Nashville tomorrow against the Predators. Then they're back home Thursday against the Kings, and then they're Saturday. So they have another game before that. So we shall see. It should be interesting. Thanks, everybody, again, for all the support. As always, make sure to check out Maher Media and all the things that we do, all of us. We have a really good group and a really good team of everyone who does so many different things, from all the writers, Paul, and our entire team. It's been a lot of fun. So thanks, everybody, again, for all the support, as always. And my name is Chris, and I will talk to you all again soon.